So, KT tools in Agile. We'll do first of all a little review. This is not meant to be an Agile or DevOps primer for anybody. There are plenty of resources for that all over the world, and you can pick them up on Google particularly easily. But I think it's worth just having a quick look at a couple of principles that are important in the whole world of Agile and DevOps. So the Agile Manifesto is not new, and agility, not just in software development, but many kinds of product development, is a valued item. The idea of freeing people to do their best and being proven to create faster, superior results is a well-known thing. But if you have a look at the statistics, there are still some major failures in Agile projects, and there are some organizations that are now advocating going back to waterfall because of those failures. And from my point of view, I think all of these things, just like any of the KT methods, work extraordinarily well, but only if they're done well. And if you do them badly, then of course you're going to get the results that will follow from that. But the Agile Manifesto stresses some things that we care about at KT: individuals and interactions over processes and tools. If we manage the quality of the communication between us in any environment, including a DevOps or Agile environment, then of course we're going to go a long way to success. The other thing that's important and unique to Agile is the idea of working software over comprehensive documentation. Many of you will be familiar with the concept of the minimum viable product, which has an unfortunate title, but directionally is a really good idea. Create something that you can learn from as quickly as possible is a fantastic idea and very much enhanced by effective use of KT tools. And we'll look at how we do that in just a little while. And then responding to change over following a plan is pretty important. You know, plans are good. The late, great Jack Penny, a comedian, an American comedian, always used to say, I do my best ad-libs when I've got a great script. And I think that's right. If you have a good quality framework, then you're able to ad-lib when you're faced with any kind of issue, and that's where KT comes in. And last but not least, third in these bullet points, customer collaboration is absolutely vital. And these principles are not just for IT professionals and techies all over the world. They can apply to any form of business and any kind of environment. So a quick overview of DevOps next. So it's a fairly straightforward and simple idea. The people who run IT operations fairly often don't understand the world of the application developer and vice versa. And bringing them together seems like a great idea. And again, when it's done well, works hugely well. So how is important here. They talk about CAMs, or culture, automation, measures, and sharing. And when you look at some of the staggering results with the cloud services organizations like Amazon, who are literally putting 100,000 deployments a day into their environment in different applications, it's absolutely staggering. People are able to create minimum viable product in minutes because they've automated a lot of the operations issues, and they're able to spin up servers in seconds rather than hours for more traditional legacy environments. So important to do these things well. Now, the key to this is effective coordinated activity. And I just wanted to play you this because I really like this. This is in the Basel city centre, and it's a fountain designed and built by the late great sculptor Jean Tinguely, and you'll find it in the Cathedral Place or Münsterplatz in Basel. I recommend you go and see it. Anytime you're in Basel, go and see it. It always makes me laugh. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But what we need to do is to make sure that we don't simply create a pretty sculpture that doesn't actually achieve anything. We do need to make sure that we add in value. Now, Agile and DevOps are mostly, and I think unfortunately, initiated by technologists who want to add more value in the face of the pressures from the business. But the use of Agile and DevOps, as far as I can tell from DevOps and Agile events I've been to, is pretty much ignored by the business. They don't consider it as important. So those of us working in technology, we really have to demonstrate that value. And part of the demonstration of the value is the quality of the first release that deploys and the minimum viable products that we present to our business partners. So what we're looking for in all of this is a degree of agility with stability. So part of that will be about getting fast turnaround of key deliverables. Whatever the business thinks are those key deliverables. It's really important to encourage experimentation and failure. If people don't have the kind of environment which allows them to try stuff and get it wrong, then they're not going to learn anything. There's a lot to learn from each iteration, each deploy, if we choose to do that. And the faster we can create those meaningful feedback loops to enhance the quality of the product we deliver finally, the better it is. Meaningful and quick feedback loops for fast key deliverables. I was talking to a client recently, and she said to me, we do 6-month sprints, which I think has kind of missed the point somewhat of being agile. No doubt it's enormously stable. And it wasn't a particularly complicated environment that justified spending so long actually getting to a minimum viable product. The other key issue for DevOps and Agile is integrating multiple work streams. So whenever you have a very large project, you're going to have a lot of coders working in parallel on different aspects and different bits of functionality, and they need to be integrated very regularly. And the same techniques that you know and love from KT can really help you do that. Now, you all, being KT users, have a huge advantage. Even if you're not Agile exponents now, at some point in the future, you're going to be called to work on in an Agile way. And DevOps requires 3 conditions to be true for effectiveness. They call it the 3 ways, and these are those 3 ways. And when you talk about considering the entire system, in other words, not just optimizing one part of the process, but considering the end-to-end value creation, SA situation appraisal is a fantastic tool for that. And getting the amplification of these feedback loops, getting really good quality information out of each deployment and release, and the feedback from the users that we're using to do the testing on these things, is enormously amplified by good quality situation appraisal, sometimes problem analysis, and usually decision analysis. And that culture experimentation is also facilitated by problem analysis thinking, particularly downloading the is and is not of each situation. Wherever users dissatisfied, they are or is dissatisfied with ABC, they are not dissatisfied with CDE, and we can learn from the distinctions between those things. But to do all of this well really does mean shared modes of communication about a number of things, and that's where we try to employ KT clear thinking. Now, in order to be useful in Agile, one of the things to say is that KT is an Agile process, although many of you will have been taught in a way that maximizes the linearity of the process. Everybody's been taught to get a problem statement, describe the is and is not, what, where, when, and extent, then list a load of possible causes, then evaluate possible causes, then do some kind of test to confirm true cause. And that's fine in a learning environment. But as we become more experienced, it's pretty obvious to many of us working in KT and the longer term users. I see Graham Curran out there, a quick wave to Graham. Longer term users like Graham, about how you use KT in practice. You can use it in any order that makes sense to you. Somebody says to you, I'm not quite happy with this functionality in the cross-dihedral monitoring application. Okay, so what exactly is it that you're unhappy about? Okay, so we're identifying concerns. Then we could go to, what would be your ideal way to do something about that? We're going across the decision analysis and getting them to give us some alternatives. If we did that, what do you think might be the opportunities? Now we're going to potential opportunity analysis. Now we can go back to situation appraisal. Which of these things that you've discussed might be the most useful to you? We're back to setting priority. So we can bounce around the colours from blue to green to red to yellow in any direction we like. But the key to effectiveness and really good quality communication is you having a real good sense of where you're at in the process. And as you document it, keep a list of concerns in one part of your paper or one part of your flip chart, one part of your whiteboard, and then keep your decision analysis, goals and alternatives somewhere else, keep your PA somewhere else, keep your PPA, POA somewhere else as well. So it takes a certain amount of skill and agility, of course, to do that, but it really will add to your life if you're facilitating a Scrum, or you're facilitating a Lean or Agile event, you're facilitating a group of people in DevOps. Keep the steps distinct, but feel completely free to bounce around in any direction you like. Now let me take this down to being agile within individual processes, because although you've been taught in a linear way, it's not necessary for you to stay linear as you employ the processes. What's important is that there are four main things to get done. In situation appraisal, we have to have the concerns, we have to have the priorities, we have to have the next steps and the involvement. And making sure that we keep those visible is absolutely vital. So here's another way in which you could use situation appraisal. This is only a way, and I'd encourage you to experiment with your own situation appraisals outside the context and the confines of the KT template and blue form. And so I've drawn some circles here. In the center of the circle, there's the topic. Then let people put concerns around the topic. Then start to identify the current and future impacts. I haven't put timeframes in there, but you can put timeframes in there as well. And then next steps and involvement in the circle. You can use different formats, as we'll see from other processes as we go to them. So there's an agile model for situation appraisal. Cluster the concerns, add the impact, agree next steps, and who's doing them. So here's an example of that at work. So some of you will recognize the case study. This is taken straight out of one of the KT classes, the help desk assistant situation appraisal case study. So we have an application running slow. Why are we worried about it? So we're looking for the concerns now. We've got some bad publicity already happening. We've got some reduction in mortgage applications already happening. There's too few staff to handle the extra calls that we're experiencing because of these issues. So then we start looking for the impact. Well, we've got applications down 14% on the normal rate. We've got an increase in complaints. There's some online blogs already showing negative reviews. And then as we go further out, we've got some next steps shown. And these are all done in different colored post-it notes, but you could do it in different ways. So that's a model. You don't have to do it in that format. Circles, you could do squares. And let's have a look at an alternative model for working on KT methods. We'll now have a quick look at decision analysis, not done in a linear way on template. So here again, I've put the heart of the matter, the decision statement in this case, at the middle, because we need to keep that our focus on that. So I think it's always, however much you play with formats, it's always good to keep the heart of the matter, whether it's a decision statement, problem statement, or a situation statement, right in the middle of things so people focus their attention in the right place. But now we can cluster the alternatives we can see around that. We can cluster the evaluation information. We can put some risk assessment points in and some objectives and weights. So one of the things you can do here is start anywhere. So if somebody says, well, you know, I'd really like to buy one of these new Mazda MX-5s. Okay, so put that in alternatives. Have you looked at any other alternatives? I've looked at a Jaguar F-Type, but that's too expensive. So I now write Jaguar F-Type, and then I will put cost into my objectives because I've heard a goal. You know, there's a cost limit there. What else have you considered? Well, I really, really like the old Saab 900 turbo soft tops. I know they're not current, but I really like those because they're really classic. Now I've got another alternative to write in, and then I can also put in another objective because I've heard classic looks or line or feel as another important thing. So as I hear the conversation, I can just plonk the information where it belongs. And here's another example, again, taken from a case study you might recognize from your own class. So here we have the memory partition bug issue, and we need to make a decision about how we're going to deal with that. And people give us some alternatives, some different vendors that can help us. Then there are some points of information about those vendors below. Then to the top left, we've got some post-it notes showing our goals or objectives, not yet with weights added, and we've got a risk that somebody's thrown up. And again, you could use hexagons, you could use triangles, you could use any shape that appeals to you. I would, however, encourage you to draw lines so it's quite clear whether we're talking about goals or objectives, about alternatives, about evaluation, or about risks. So if we go back up, it doesn't have to be that shape, but do maintain the separation between different parts of the process. And then finally, as we're running close to over time here, I'd like to just talk about agility in problem analysis, because too often I've found that people say, well, it takes too long, folks. It takes too long. We don't want to do problem analysis because it's only for difficult problems. It takes too long. And I'd like to say, well, let's focus back on the goal. The goal is the most probable cause. So one way to make it a lot faster is to prioritize is and is not data. And some of you might remember the 15-minute spec, which is relevant to this. But really think about where the distinctions might be interesting and confine your PA steps to those more likely to yield useful data. So really think, okay, which is and is not do I really want given the problem statement that we're seeing? So we actually look for the first packet of problem is data and is matching is not. Look quickly for differences. Is there a material difference in the affected item? And can we imagine or find a change or trigger event that could combine to cause this problem or symptom? And there's a possible cause. And we check that out. And if it's that, we've done well. We've done this really quickly in a couple of minutes maybe. And if it's not that, we go back and look for other is and is not information. So we can go across the red form rather than just down. And we can again use post-it notes and move them around on a whiteboard to see what's happening. Simple example. So one day we found water on the bedroom floor, and we found it in only one bedroom and not the other bedroom. So I go outside and I look up and I see missing tiles. And guess what? There's also water outside on the grass. So I guess there's been overnight rain. There's the cause in a moment. And if I hadn't found something different about the roof above my daughter's bedroom compared to my son's bedroom, then I would have looked for something else that was different between above their rooms or around their rooms. I would have gone inside the roof maybe and looked at the water piping and other things which might distinguish what's above their rooms and have a look for those differences. Just keep looking for is and is not. Now a quick word about KT in Agile. This is the Agile Alliance subway map, and one of the things that is really good about this is there are a lot of methods given here, and it's worth reading up about these methods. But when you go into them individually, story mapping, story splitting, user stories, pure situation appraisal, most of them, with a little flavor of DA objectives, acceptance tests. You should be using both potential problem analysis and potential opportunity analysis. Mock objects, benefits from creative thinking in DA. That was an earlier webcast that you can pick up on the website if you search for it, creative decision analysis. There's some ideas about using creativity in DA there. So you look at many of these, SA, DA, PPA, PA, POA, will be a huge benefit in making sure these work really well for you. So I'd encourage you to read up about these if you don't already know them, and then have a try. KT in DevOps, then, just as a quick summary, Use situation appraisal to build rich user stories. That's really the starting point of a good piece of development. The better we understand the user story and how it really feels to be operating that particular process, the better it is. Use DA iterations to explore business needs as we build. In other words, every time the user says, I like this and I don't like that, that's a clue to some other objectives we should add into our creative decision analysis process for the next sprint. PA, obviously, to understand surprises, both good ones and bad ones. PPA to keep your sprints on track, and potential opportunity analysis to get more from each deployment. So a couple of things that I'd like to try. First of all, play with the methods. Don't stick to the rigidity of the template. If you don't want to get a whole bunch of colored post-it notes out, and start moving them around. Remember to keep the separation between the different steps of each process. Try different formats for recording, and your process cards really become your checklist of when I'm being creative and using circles and bubbles and all kinds of things like that, have I really answered all of the important questions? And doing this, of course, will keep your work visible to your team. Now, I'm happy to hang around for an extended period if you'd like to ask questions either by voice or chat, but we've come to the end of our allotted time this morning. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for coming. And Tim will look forward to hearing your voices on June the 10th. Some of you, if you want to hear a little bit more about situation appraisal in those difficult, conflicting priority situations. Thank you very much, everybody.